So it's my honor to introduce to you Ben Affleck.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. All right. Thank you. Yes, the Bomb and Phantoms. This is the last day I'm going to put up with that Bomb and Phantoms joke. I'm very excited. I'm very honored to be here. I know it's supposed to be about like Kevin and Jay, but keeping with Hollywood tradition, I'd like to make it about me. You know, appropriate. You know, when I came out to LA in the early '90s, I was a struggling actor, and I couldn't even you know. There we go. It's back. So I came out to LA. I was a struggling actor, and I was sort of awkward and big and goofy looking, and I guess I must have been kind of off-putting because I couldn't even get an audition for like the leading roles of anything. But every time some project showed up, the casting director would be like, "They're not interested in you for any of the main parts, but there is a kind of a douchey, unpleasant villain that we think you would be right for." And so I played that part in School Ties. I was the douchey anti-Semite. Dazed and Confused, I was the annoying villain who chased people around with a paddle. And then one director had the singular vision to cast me as the annoying, douchey guy with a suit in Mallrats, for which I will be forever grateful. One of them was the director of the movie. He was a guy who could not stop talking about himself. And the other one was the director's friend, who had only ever acted one time before in a black and white movie called Clerks. And the two of them had a kind of a special relationship that I couldn't quite figure out. They were either brothers or best friends or a surrogate father and a wayward son or possibly husband and wife. You know, they were sweet, but they cursed like sailors, to be honest. In fact, this is a true story. I subsequently did a USO tour and was taken on an aircraft carrier, and the XO said, you know, some of these guys curse like Jay and Silent Bob. So. The off-screen dynamic they had was really kind of adorable because, you know, in the movies, the big one followed the little one around, but in real life, the little one followed the bigger one around all the time. So whether they were working or not, they were kind of always together, like Snoopy and Woodstock by way of Bill and Ted, sort of, or Bert and Ernie by way of Cheech and Chong. They were loyal to each other for whatever reason, and suddenly they were loyal to this guy from Boston who they barely knew, and they made me part of their View Askew family. And the little one would say kind of nonsensical things like snoogans and snoochie boochies and call people used guys. And the bigger one would say nonsensical things like, Mallrats going to make $100 million. It's only off by 98 million. Even more nonsensical, he said, I'm going to make you the lead of my next movie. And they may say a lot of nonsensical things, but they don't bullshit. And I did get a big role in the director's next movie. And the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And for a while, I really feel like we were like Scorsese and De Niro. You know, if none of Scorsese and De Niro's movies got critical acclaim or made any money or got any awards, and we're all set in New Jersey. So his little friend was kind of our Joe Pesci character, the motor mouth clown who amused everybody, but who you kind of knew was somehow secretly sort of a genius. And we built our careers together while laughing and learning about the movie business. We dreamed our dreams together until a lot of them came true, and it was really the most fun I ever had making movies. Absolutely the least profitable, but the most fun for sure. In fact, you know, I really owe Kevin for starting my own career off as a filmmaker. When I was doing Mallrats, I kept telling him how I was, you know, me and my friend, we wanted to write this script, and you know, I finally got the courage up and asked him to read it. And I flew out of town, I came back, and he pulled me aside and he said, I want you to know, I started reading your script on the toilet. I said, thank you. And he goes, I didn't get off until I finished it. Which turns out was Kevin's highest form of praise. But he was very encouraging. The idea that like some guy with no connections and no money and no, in my case, education to speak of, could actually like get a movie made and have something to say and make a contribution. And he's an executive producer on that movie. And my really principal main regret about the Oscars and that whole movie is that on Oscar night, I neglected to thank Kevin because I was kind of overwhelmed. And there really would be no Good Will Hunting script, certainly wouldn't have gotten made without him. So I want to take this opportunity to remedy that. Pretend that I'm on the stage at the Oscars and say, thank you, Kevin Smith, very, very much. When I told people, they reached out to me to do their movie, their new movie, Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, and they were always there for me, and so I really wanted to be there for them. And 22 years after Chasing Amy, I pretended to be Holden McNeil again. And since Holden McNeil is really just the writer-director with a different name, he essentially asked me to play him. And this is either the cheapest or the most expensive form of therapy on the planet. But we got together and we shot our scene, and it was like finding your favorite old T-shirt in a moving box, and it still fit, After 25 years, these guys still fit. They were like this comfortable, wonderful, familiar T-shirt of American movies, and I think that's kind of fitting, because these guys are sort of like the American dream come true. If the American dream was to talk about comic books and dissect love and analyze Star Wars using every curse word in the planet. When I told people I was going to speak for them today, as they got their handprints at the cement at the Chinese Theater, the average response was two things. First was, really? And the second one was, good for these guys. And the first response, really, I think, is because when we think of the Chinese theater footprints, we think of larger-than-life Hollywood legends, people like Jack Nicholson or, R2-D2. And the guys from Mallrats, I feel like, are sort of joining that second group, you know what I mean? And good for those guys comes after that, you do the math and you realize that these guys are Hollywood legends now. We don't think of them as such because we've seen them hanging around the same convenience store, and you don't think of legends as the guys who sell you weed outside 7-Eleven, and yet that's who they are. Legends aren't people you actually know. They're legends, and legends break the mold, and that's what these two have been doing for a quarter century, breaking the mold over and over. So it would stand to reason they broke the legend mold, too. They couldn't even do that the right way because, they're from New Jersey. Keep the car running. They've been hanging around the Quick Stop for 25 years, but today, Jay and Silent Bob start hanging around the TCL Chinese Theater courtyard forever, ensconced in cement with all the other Hollywood legends, right where they belong. I'm really, really grateful to these two guys, and I have to say, I just love them so much. Thank you, and thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.